Hey guys, welcome to Messy Minds.
Cheers, babe.
How are you?
I'm really good. That's a lie. I feel like I'm stressed. That's a lie.
That's at least you're,
Yeah, no, I'm calling myself out on it.
honest after the fact.
Yeah. It's always knee-jerk to say like, oh, I'm good. How are you? Yeah.
Yeah, because most people don't care. When they ask you how you are, they don't really want to know the answer.
I just feel like everything is very heavy, and it feels like the weight of the world is really resting on my shoulders right now. Don't have any reason to. I mean, I have like a to-do list the length of the Nile, but it's my own fault, so it's fine. I'm just trying to be kinder and more compassionate to myself and just check things off my list. And
You usually function like that,
yeah.
where you always have like multiple jobs and a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. We thrive in the chaos.
Yeah,
We do.
Yeah, because
We really do.
it's really the motivation that pushes you to continue going.
Yeah.
Is knowing that if you don't, everything will fall apart.
I feel like that has something to do with the way that like we grew up and how school was structured, that everything was like deadline oriented, and then you were rewarded very heavily for meeting those deadlines.
Yeah,
and
or
now
it could be the ADHD.
that's
also. Yeah.
that too.
Oh, goodness.
That could be that. Could be that. Could be that. That's pretty crazy. And the holidays are
Ooh, like holidays.
I kind of like the holidays. I kind of don't. It's a mixed bag. I feel like there's a lot of emotions around the holidays. And
I usually like the holidays. But holidays are always
a big deal.
fantastic.
Yeah.
They're always fun. Everybody's always in a good mood, no matter who is fighting at the time. So I'm a big fan.
This particular holiday season should be interesting since my grandparents got back together. So that should be. Yeah, so we're gonna see how it goes. I'm going to be probably perma-stoned the entire time. So
Excellent.
yeah,
It's
fine. It's fine. Most people cope with alcohol. I would rather get high and laugh at everything and just eat.
At least this way you're not killing your liver. I
True
suppose.
story.
So.
True story. Every word. Exactly. So how are you?
Oh boy.
Mhm.
Am I stressed?
Yeah.
So I'm a respiratory therapist.
You're the coolest.
And we've been in a respiratory pandemic for the last almost 2 years now.
2 years in March. Holy shit.
Right. I'm tired. Work is starting to get pretty
Draining.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's taking a lot out of you. I noticed it.
Yeah.
I've been noticing it.
It's really emotionally exhausting because there's a lot of like really tough calls
That you have
that
to.
we've been having to make.
Yeah.
And somebody who feels emotions the way that I do.
Deeply.
Right. Very intensely, as I
Yeah.
discussed with my therapist earlier today. I feel everything really intensely, and so it is starting to get to me a little bit. So that's something that I'm working on. I talked to my therapist about it today, and we've come up with a few ideas to try. So we'll see how that goes. And
But it is okay. Like it was discussed. Like you're not a sociopath, so it is normal
Right,
to
so
feel
she
like some
told
type
me-
of way.
she told me that it's normal that it bothers me.
That people die? Yeah, it should. Like, oh, you have a soul.
I know,
It
that's
should.
strange.
Yeah, it should bother you. It really should,
Yeah.
And it's okay that it does, and it's okay to grieve that. That's the thing. It's a grieving process for you too, not just for the loved ones, but the people that took care of the ones that passed.
Yeah, and I never wanted to be. When I went into healthcare at 18, I told myself that I was never going to become one of those people that gets jaded and like forgets that these are people,
Just desensitized to the whole thing.
Right, like these are people and these are their lives.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be one of those healthcare workers that forgets that and it becomes just a job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I never wanted to be that person. And so in keeping that open, it gets difficult. And it does burn me out emotionally.
Of course it does.
Especially in this pandemic frequently. So that's why I've been taking a lot of vacations over the last few months, because it's like I can only handle it for a few weeks at a time before I start to really feel that burnout. So I've been trying to take a couple days off here and there just to, keep my sanity.
I feel that. I just got done like working 9 days in a row. Obviously, like my decisions are more like, oh, how am I going to get this person elevated? But, it's not life or death. But I mean, work has an ability to just exhaust every fiber of your being.
It can be
mentally,
that way.
physically, emotionally, psychologically, just everything. And it can be your coworkers, it can be the clientele that you have to deal with, like whatever it is. We're in the industry of people, and people are exhausting, especially right now.
It's true.
I'm sorry that you're going through a lot. That's a lot. It's been a lot for the last couple of years. I've watched it all like unfold from the very beginning of it with you.
When it got really bad last winter, when it was the worst that it was, it really affected me mentally, for sure. And so I'm just trying to be more conscious of that this year, and like, when I feel like I need a break, I need a break. That's okay. No matter how often that is, because I am literally doing nothing but dealing with death and trying to literally reverse it.
Well, not just that, but
every day.
You have a much better home environment, which I think makes all the difference in the world, that you have the ability to decompress.
Definitely. And I have a much stronger support system now than I did last year.
Damn straight.
So.
Lots has changed.
Yes.
Lots has changed.
Speaking of last year, so we've mentioned before that we had an audio-only podcast before. So last year, right around this time, we made an episode. We made an episode about attachment styles
that we listened to
last night.
It was cringy for us. Like,
yeah,
I'll
very
say cringy. So cringe, because I think it was just really like, we see exactly like why we stopped that version of this podcast and now have entered into this version of it. It was a vent and dump session of everything we felt. Everything.
Yeah, it was.
And it was no holds
truly
bar.
Very therapeutic.
It was no holds bar.
It was, we were talking last night, it was really like putting a microphone on one of our personal conversations, honestly. It was.
And we definitely
really
wanted
personal
to do that with this too. Obviously, that's why we're showing our faces, but like.
And my favorite quote from the episode was another episode where Bri looks sad.
At the very beginning, like you prefaced it. It's a foreshadowing.
And it was true. And it really was the theme of which is why it's no longer up. That's not what our goal is with it. It served its purpose back then, but now that we're here, it's a revamp and we're back on track with our goal.
But
and
you.
I'm in a much healthier place.
You are different.
So I don't need to vent about my trauma on the internet quite as much.
Exactly.
That's probably a little bit, but
I think that's what this is.
Not nearly what that was. So last year when we took the attachment styles quiz, what did you have?
I was secure.
And we were truly shocked.
And it was, and whatever. I had a healthy childhood, and I now have a healthy outlook on relationships. So, or I try to, you know what I mean? It's a conscious effort. It's still, we've all been through shit. But I definitely feel like I have a healthy approach to things, and I look at things with logic and with emotion equally.
Yeah, so then this year, when you took it just for funsies, it was secure again.
It was secure again. The only difference that I would know, and it has a lot to do with a conversation that you and I had outside of this, one day we were talking about our childhoods, and I had mentioned something that I was just like, it really wasn't okay that this happened. And you told me, I think it's time that you start looking at your childhood more objectively and your parents objectively. Not to say that they're bad people. They're amazing people.
I love them.
Yeah,
I think they're fantastic parents.
Phenomenal. I do too. Like, I would take a bullet for them. Mm-hmm. That being said, it's really easy to fuck up a kid. So easy. So easy. And you do the best with what you've got. And at times, their methods definitely have stayed with me to a point where it's like, oh, that has actually affected the way that I am as an adult and the way I have interpersonal relationships and the way that I look at things. So I think the main difference that between last time I took this test and this time that I took this test, and we'll post this test with the link in this video, was I sat there and you recited the questions to me and gave me the scale and everything, and I was very honest about
you were, and you took a lot of time deliberating your answers.
I really wanted to be honest, not like I was expecting my answers to change, because I feel like I still am very secure in my attachment style and the way that I view personal relationships, but I definitely looked at my parents a lot more objectively in the way that they did things and the way that they punished me and how they handled my emotional responses and my growth and everything and experiences as a kid. And lucky for me, I have a very, very good memory. So I think I was able to look at things more objectively and just be like, nah, that changed for sure. I wasn't as nice and oh no, they were just pristine and they did everything perfect. And they're good examples. There's also some things that I would change. If I were a parent.
I mean, listen, we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, guys, it's really easy to mess up a kid.
Very much so.
It's really easy to mess a kid up. Really.
Very much so.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's what would be my main drawback from retaking the test for sure. But yeah, no, I came out secure, and that wasn't surprising. So what was surprising, I did the same thing for you, recited the test. And
so last year when I took the test, I was an anxious attachment style.
Mm-hmm.
And
for those
clearly,
who don't know, what is an anxious attachment style? You can pretty much judge based on what secure is, but what is anxious?
I mean, anxious is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's those people with abandonment issues.
You need assurance.
Yes, you need constant reassurance, a lot of there's a lot of fear of people leaving constantly, and then
there's a lot of emotional extremes in the relationships
usually
too.
People pleasers, typically, because they're so afraid of the other person wanting to leave for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into all of the, into details.
Yeah, we'll delve in. We'll delve in.
So, this year, when I took it, I was actually secure, which was interesting and highly unexpected. I didn't realize that I had.
Did we both cry? I think we both cried. It was a big moment.
I did cry. Yes.
It was a really big moment. That was huge. That is physical evidence of your progress and how much
I've been working so hard.
Yeah, and I know it. I've seen it, but I think that was just the.
It was just
validation.
Confirmation.
It was validation.
It was hey. It's happening.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah, you're doing the damn thing. You are improving your mental health actively.
You're doing good. High five.
I've mentioned a couple of times, I think, in passing conversation with you, how much you've grown and how much you've progressed and how you are different from the person you are last year. And I'll make a comparison in a situation, but I'm not an assessment test.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you everything in the world, but I can't make you believe it. You know what I mean? And I feel like I felt you believe it in that moment. Like, I felt you believe
it was like tangible progress.
Like it really was. It really was. It was a lot. But it was really cool.
Yeah, it was definitely intensely emotional, which is how I experience life. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's talk about the 4 main attachment styles. Okay?
All right. 4
So
main attachment styles.
we have, obviously, secure. We have anxious, or the ambivalent. We have an avoidant or dismissive, and then we have a combination of the anxious and the avoidant, and they call it a fearful avoidant type.
Yes.
So these are all the 4 different styles of attachments, all developed in childhood, and they hardcore resonate 100% with the individual relationships that you have with your maternal figure and your paternal figure.
Right. So there's 4 main things that go into how you develop your attachment style, right? And those are proximity maintenance, which is the desire to be near people that we're attached to.
Right.
So if you don't want to be around the people
that
your caregivers, you know, like if you're like, I don't really like Dad that much.
That's a thing. That should be a thing, right? That's a problem.
Right.
Like that's a yellow flag at the bare minimum.
Right.
Orange,
pink,
orange, sunset, blood
tequila
orange.
Sunrise,
blood orange.
Tequila
Shut up! It's fucking
sunrise
red.
Shut up!
Shut up! It's fucking red.
All right. So number 2 is safe haven, which is basically feeling that your caregiver is a safe place to be.
Yeah, and your home environment is your refuge.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Number 3 is secure base, which is where the parent allows the child to basically explore on their own independently and then come back and check in whenever they
Gives them the
need
foundation
to.
and the structure, but the freedom to explore interests.
Right. Exactly. And number 4 is separation distress, which is an anxiety that occurs in the absence of an attachment figure. So those are the 4 things that go into developing your attachment style. Clearly, those are really large general topics, and there's a lot of things that go into that. And so there's really, I can't stress this enough, so many ways you can mess up your children. Anyway.
Yeah, and even without the intent to, like, that's the thing. I truly believe, like, even though there were things in my childhood that I do think hardcore fucked me up as an adult, it wasn't with the intent to fuck me up. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, this is the only way that they knew how to handle and or punish me as a child. Or this was the only way that they knew how to keep me in order. You know, whatever it may be.
Right.
However they could justify it without being like, okay, well, like, this is the only way that we know how to do it at this point in time. Like, you work with what you've got, truly.
Absolutely.
And I don't fault them for that. Like, I think that's a huge thing in letting go of it, is just, you can't fault them for that as an adult later on. Like, you just have to look at it and be like, okay,
I mean,
I'm aware.
certain parents you can fault them for that.
Certain parents,
Some parents you can fault.
Yeah.
But your parents,
in my parents in particular,
I would
yeah,
say no.
I'm not going to fault them for
yeah.
that. I have since forgiven them for those indiscretions that I feel like I've had, and then I'm just like, now it's like, all right, and now I have to be aware and work through that and just be like, okay, that's a new thing to be aware of. Now I've just got to be conscious, you know, like,
yeah, exactly,
like the fact that I now have daddy issues.
So secure attachment style, Chelsea, would you like to explain a little bit of what that is?
Yeah, so within childhood, a secure attachment style is developed because your parents give you the safe haven, obviously a home and a refuge that you feel that you can find peace in and that you feel safe, obviously, without, I feel like redundant in that saying that, but whatever. And then also they give you the ability to express your interests, express your emotions, and for the most part, understand your feelings and react accordingly.
Right, so how does that translate into adulthood?
How that translates into adulthood is I now mirror those things essentially in my interpersonal relationships, not necessarily friendships. I mean, obviously it does work with friendships, but it more resonates with like your romantic relationships.
Right.
So like, obviously I am very open, I'm very understanding, I'm very patient, I give 100%. And I trust 100% until I have reason not to.
Yeah.
But I am open. And I feel like that is what being secure is just being open. Open to love, open to whatever your romantic partner is going through, open to resonating with them, open to the possibilities within that relationship, and open to healthy boundaries too, setting those healthy boundaries as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say the most important part for me on the other side of that hurdle there has been the ability to be in a relationship without being actively afraid that somebody is going to leave all the time.
Mm-hmm. Having that security and that assurance that's like, I know they're good, I know they're staying, like I don't have to worry about that.
So, basically, adults with secure attachment styles are characterized as having trusting, lasting relationships and friendships, having good self-esteem, sharing their feelings openly and vulnerably with their partners and their close friends.
Yes.
And
Which
not strangers.
Not strangers.
Not strangers. We
not
don't need
trauma
to
dumping on strangers.
No, we don't need to trauma dump on people we just met 5 minutes ago, guys. That's a trauma response.
People do that with me, though. That's a different story for another time. It's just my face.
And the ability to seek out help when you need it.
Yeah.
To know when you need help and to have
To accept it.
The confidence and the lack of unhealthy ego to actually seek the help.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to anxious attachment style. What is that, Chelsea?
Anxious. So I feel like you should touch on that one because this was you last year. This was you one calendar year ago. Like to the day.
Yeah, strange. So anxious attachment style is formed a lot of times when your parents are inconsistent with you or separated from you for whatever reason. If they're emotionally distant from you, it can happen. Kids that have developed an anxious attachment, usually have a really strained or emotionally distant
Unavailable. Yeah. It's just
relationship with their parents a lot of times.
there's a lack of connection there.
Yeah,
There
there's
is.
usually a lot of chaos in the home. It's, which
Instability and
we thrive in the chaos, right? Chelsea?
yes we do. Yes,
So
we do.
so when they're children, it makes people very like wary of strangers, very like shy. They don't like making new friends very easily, stuff like that. And they can become like very distressed when their parents leave. So these are the kids with like the separation anxiety.
Yes.
I don't know how much babysitting you've done. Have you ever babysat a child that just screams
Just yes.
as soon as the mother
Just
leaves
yes.
and just won't
Yeah.
stop?
Yes. And you're just like
And they're like not
Nothing.
an infant, like 4.
Yeah, actually,
Because
yeah.
that's pretty normal
Yeah.
for babies and toddlers. I
Yes.
accept that.
Yeah.
But when they get older, like that's when it's a little
That's when
bit
it's a
more.
little, like-
Yeah. So this can also occur when if your parent is super super anxious and like has general like trust issues with things and the world and like stuff like that. So it's it kind of like rubs off on you. It's kind of like you learn those habits and you don't
kids
even
are
realize
sponges.
that
Like, they
it's not
absorb
normal
everything.
behavior.
Yeah.
And they don't appear to be comforted when their parents return either. So they are stressed out when their parents are leaving, but they don't get like happy again when their parents are there. It's just kind of
Familiar.
yeah. So as adults, these are people who are reluctant to get close to people who have trust issues, people who think that their loved ones are going to abandon them, or that their partner doesn't love them. These are the people whose lives kind of crumble when their relationships end, because it was like
that was their
personality.
Yeah,
it was like everything that they depended on. Their entire self-worth depended on this person loving them.
Well, and like I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like especially with having a tumultuous home environment, your partner becomes the person that you vent to about that unstable home environment.
Oh, yeah.
And if you lose that, it's like, well,
yeah,
who the fuck am I going to complain to? Who's going to understand this as well as they do? Like,
right.
They've seen it and understood it with me every
right.
step of the way.
And at that point, if you're the kind of person with an anxious attachment, you most likely don't have a super great support system within your family. So then your support system would become your partner and your friends.
Yes.
You know, and it's just when you lose a piece of that, it's devastating.
It is. It is. It's like a death.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
It is. To the next one, which is avoidant, I believe.
Okay, so I think the last time that we talked, you touched on how you believe that your ex is an avoidant type.
Yes, from the guy that I dated when I was 19.
Yes.
Yes, I believe is an avoidant.
How
yes.
do you, as a former anxious type, think that you attracted an avoidant type? Like, why do you think that is?
Avoidance, in my opinion, almost always attract anxious people. Because a securely attached person is not going to put up with that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, a securely attached person is not going to look at somebody with an avoidant attachment and see that, you know, they run away at the sight of any problem, or see that they aren't emotionally available, or see that they're not all in the relationship and put up with that. They're just not going to.
Right.
You know who is, though? Anxiously attached people, because they just want to be loved. They just want somebody to accept them unconditionally.
Yeah.
And so they will end up vying for this person's attention until they're stuck in a cycle of normally emotional abuse at the very least.
Right.
When it comes to a relationship like that.
Right.
You know. So that's my opinion on that. And these are people who it can be caused by severe childhood trauma, a parent being absent, you know, various things like that. Like, people who have avoidant attachments typically did not have a fuzzy childhood.
Nope.
To be fair to them.
Yeah.
You know, and as children, they avoid their parents. They don't think that they're a safe place. They don't seek comfort from them. Like, if they need comfort, they'll find it in their rooms by themselves. They learn how to be hyper independent very, very early in life.
Right, exactly. So as adults, they have no problem being single. They're extremely independent and assertive.
Right.
And
right.
they have this give no fuck attitude.
These are your extreme fuckboys, guys.
Yes,
These
are the ones that's like, oh, my ex-girlfriend, texted me last week and it really messed me up. So I'm not really ready for a relationship right now.
So then these people as adults, they're afraid of intimacy, emotional vulnerability, they're not open. Usually they're not honest with themselves, to be completely honest.
They're the ones that are complete commitment phobes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Right, exactly.
One thing you pointed out to me when we talked last, you said that you fueled each other. Like, I can see how...
Me and the avoidant guy?
Yes. I could see how he would essentially fuel you. Like,
yes.
your need for that love.
Yeah.
How would you fuel, how does an anxious attachment fuel that avoidant attachment?
Because as an anxiously attached person, you tend to put your partner on a pedestal. And so, and I, in particular, because I experience things very intensely, one of my ex-boyfriends once told me that I don't just love somebody, I drown myself in them.
Yes. And that's...
Right. And so the way that I love and that attachment style made him feel like a god.
Like
and
you could do no wrong.
I fed his ego like crazy. And I was willing to put up with the neglect and the other crap.
Of course.
You know, and I was willing to stick around for that because I was desperate.
Yeah.
For somebody to love me, especially at that point. 19, it was, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it was a hard year.
Yeah.
It was a very
I was in a rough spot when I was 19. So I was incredibly vulnerable to that kind of relationship.
Very much so.
You know, and that is how people like that is how people like narcissists operate. They can recognize the vulnerable people, the people that are the easiest to manipulate within minutes of walking into a room. That is how they operate.
Yeah.
True narcissists, like that man was.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's my opinion on how we got together. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I definitely do. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess there's one more, which is anxious avoidant. It's a combination of anxious and avoidant.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
I think that's probably what both of our ex-husbands were, most likely.
Yes, 100%. 100,000 million billion %.
Which is really just caused by an inconsistency in parenting. I mean, this is really, really common in divorce.
Traumatic inconsistency, but yeah.
It's really common in kids of divorce because you have two different parenting styles in two different houses. You've got things going on all over the place, you know, and you've got this parent messing up this way and this parent messing up this way, and it just...
Fearful avoidant is also known as disorganized, like in and of itself.
Yeah.
It is characterized by having, again, that really, really tumultuous, emotionally traumatic childhood. You have no consistency. I think I wrote it down here. It was really, really cool because you have a lack of consistency in your home life. You have no ability to emotionally express yourself without fear of having your parent react to you improperly, and you don't have room to freely express your interests or seek support because every time it's usually met with disdain or anger or pain or punishment.
Right, exactly. It's
And-
never validated and you're never comforted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of times it is characterized with homes that have a lot of drug addictions and alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And other domestic abuse forms. And it is really sad. It's really interesting because as an adult, when they transition, my ex had this phrase that he would say that he said he was really good at his elevator interactions, his 30-second interactions. And this is something that fearful avoidant types do really well. They come off extremely intelligent, extremely charming. They are damn near irresistible, honestly.
That's actually not a fearful avoidant trait. That's a narcissistic
That's a narcissistic trait, for sure. But in this also, in the attachment project, it does say, initially they present themselves as confident, attractive, and exciting, as if they have life figured out.
Interesting.
They didn't have any of their needs met, so that being said, they took that into their interpersonal romantic relationships. They have a hard time trusting and getting to know people. they are super envious and jealous and really fearful of large crowds and being around large masses of people. It's just a general distrust of the mass public.
Yeah.
And to a T. To a T. That was them. So you presented prior to this retaking as an anxious attachment, and you attracted a fearful avoidant type.
Yes.
How did you guys feel each other?
I think when it came down to how that relationship formed, I think it was a lot of him and I had both experienced so much.
In such a short
I don't
amount
think
of time.
us getting together really had anything to do with our attachment styles. I think that was more of a why we fell apart kind of thing.
Interesting. Because
Yeah.
your secure attachment style actually developed and you
Well, no,
found love for yourself.
I would say that developed this year.
Yeah.
I would say at the beginning of this year after he moved out, that's when that changed.
But you definitely had a love for yourself, and that was the first step in developing a secure attachment style.
Yeah, and I think that us coming together was more about what had brought us to that point, and more about what we had experienced in our childhoods, in our lives before that connected us and made us initially very empathetic to each other.
Right.
And that very quickly turned into something else, unfortunately. But that was what I think initially got us together, and I think that our attachment styles were the reason why it ultimately was never going to work. It was just too much friction, I think.
There was a lot of pain.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I think inversely, I was a secure attachment style. Always have been, probably always will be. And that's the thing that we found interesting in this is like every single article or thing that I pulled up in researching this particular subject said that your attachment style pretty much stays with you. You're obviously living proof that you can grow and become better.
Listen, the article says that because most people don't put in the work it takes to change that.
Yeah, so they
It's a lot of work and it's a lot of pain. Listen, this crap was not easy. I did not get here with sunshine and rainbows.
Continually impressed with your hard work, honestly. But anyways,
I appreciate that.
yeah, like being a secure person then attracting a fearful avoidant attachment style. You can chalk it up to a lot of things. You can chalk it up to me being young, really young and really naive and wanting change. I was so into just experiencing change in every way, shape, and form in my early 20s. Oh my God.
You were a nomad
I was
back then.
My family still
Borderline
calls
nomad.
me a gypsy. Like, they call me the gypsy, and they call
moved.
Bingley my gypsy dog. Like,
You moved a lot. You were all about the new experiences.
I
and
was.
Lord knows how many industries you've worked in over your
all
lifetime.
of them. All
you
of
know?
them. Pretty
So,
much. Yeah.
I mean, clearly you're into new experiences.
Very much
and
so.
exciting things
Yes.
and novelty.
Yes, very much so. And I had just exited a relationship that was just
Boring.
oh, that was me. Okay. Yeah, we'll call it.
I mean,
that.
that's fair. No,
It was-
listen, he's a good guy.
Yes, he's a good guy, and
But he
I
just-
think he's really happy with the
you
person
know,
that he's with now. And
Your personalities were not compatible.
No, and it was what it was. It was a very much perfect on paper relationship and on social media, but it wasn't actually.
I mean, y'all were cute.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything of substance, and there wasn't anything of substance there.
Yeah.
So I moved on, and I met my ex, and again, cue that 30-second interaction, that elevator interaction. He was charming and had his shit together and well experienced and older, and like, I mean, there was so much, and there was so much similarity, like uncanny, weirdly coincidental similarities, you know what I mean? So it was, you feel that instantaneous click. And I heard this phrase the other day. It was like, the red flags and the butterflies will feel the same.
Yes. Well, because the butterflies are, hey guys, the butterflies are anxiety.
Yeah.
Not feelings of love.
No, they're not.
It's your body telling you to run most of the time.
Usually. And they are. And it's true. You think it feels good, but it's like, it almost like your heart drops, and it's just like, oh my God, you're vibrating.
The way that I would describe it is, if it's in your chest, it's probably a good butterfly feeling,
but
and if it's in your gut, abdomen, it's probably a bad one. It's the way that I look at it, because I like that. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, just really pay attention to your body and where you're feeling things.
Yes, yeah,
it's really, really helpful.
I can't say how like much of a chemical reaction I had in meeting him and in having that conversation with him, and it's something that still to this day sticks out in my head. It was karmic. 100%, it needed to happen to me. But I entered into that relationship very much thinking, I just need to show him what love is and what having a loving family looks like. And if I can do that for him, then success.
Yeah.
And I entered into that marriage thinking I could be that and that I could heal that for him. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of healing to put on a 23-year-old girl.
You can't do that.
There was so much that he had went through in his lifetime that was so heavy for someone who hadn't experienced even a fraction of what he went through. And I still don't know everything.
And your heart broke for him.
Oh,
I
God.
Understand.
God did. It still does. It still does to this day. Because you can't help the hand that you're dealt.
Right. And some people never learn how to get past that.
And that's the problem that eventually became the detriment of our marriage, was he was okay with being that person. Like, he was just set that this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, this is my comfort, this is my home.
Well, that's the worst part, in my opinion, is that he was very self-aware.
When I say
it's
that,
not that
he
didn't know that he was the way that he was. He was very self-aware, and he had just accepted that that is how he was.
He didn't think he was capable of happiness or bettering himself, or that change was something that could be good for him, that it was just going to end up in heartache, because that's all that he's ever been given.
Yeah, I've been with men like that before. Yeah.
And it's a vicious monster complex that you're just,
and it is absolutely
like, almost like you deserve it. Like, and that's what he is deserving of. And I mean, when you become the metaphorical punching bag for that kind of a person, I had to let go. You know what I mean? Like, I worked so hard on trying every method and outlet to try and help and not set off reactions, and it didn't matter at the end of the day. Like, my very existence was just going to be a set off, because I mirrored exactly what he didn't have.
Yeah. And listen, we're not saying that all of the people with this attachment, I don't want you guys to think that we think this is like a bad person label. Yeah. This was just her particular
100%,
example.
100%.
You know, it's
just my particular example.
And it is entirely possible for somebody with an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment or an anxious avoidant attachment to get into a healthy relationship. The thing is, you have to do it with somebody who's a good match for you. You have to be, when you're dating, you have to be really, really conscious about it. They have to be able to kind of conform to what it is that you need.
Exactly.
Or else it's just going to end up in a toxic cycle.
There's a lot of patience and understanding and empathy that has to happen in relationships regardless, and being open about communicating. But the thing is, whatever you dealt with at the end of the day cannot be taken out on your partner. And that's the bottom line, is my ex took out everything he went through on me. And that's where the detriment fell through, and where I realized that this particular person, and because of his inability to grow from this particular attachment style, did not work with me.
Right. No, and that's totally fair. And you shouldn't.
Never.
You know,
Oh.
Nobody has to stay in a relationship that they don't want to be in.
Nor should you put up with anything like that. Ever. Never. Ever, ever. Like,
No.
but hey.
Which brings us to how I changed my attachment style.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
So when I decided to ask my ex-husband to move out, that was the most difficult decision I've ever had to make, for sure. And it's something that I had gone back and forth on and
For a
sworn
long
up
time.
and down I'm not gonna get back together with him multiple times, for years. It was a very difficult decision for me because, again, I was an anxious attachment, and so the thought of ending the relationship, being alone, starting over, not to mention, I loved him.
Of course. Like,
I married him for a reason.
father of your child. Like,
Right, exactly.
That's a really, you go through shit. It's not like, a lot of people have to remember that it's not 100% bad. It's mostly bad, granted, but
Right. It
there is
wasn't
that
all bad. Right. There were good
1%
moments.
minimum of good moments. You know what I mean? They happened.
Right. We were together for 6 years. There was good
Exactly.
moments somewhere in there.
Exactly.
You know, or I wouldn't have ever been with him.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Exactly.
So when I asked him to move out, it really made a change in me. I think because of how difficult that decision was for me and how painful it was.
You chose yourself.
It forced me to get to a place where one day I remember I sat myself down one day because I was feeling like crap over some dude who had done something that I wasn't a fan of. And I told myself, you did not go through all of that pain and end that marriage so that you could feel like crap from somebody who means less to you than that. Are you kidding?
Why would you put up with anything that you left your ex for? Like, literally. Like, that in and of itself. I sent you a meme this morning.
Yeah.
That said
And I was like,
exactly
that's
that.
weird. That's what I was going to talk about today. In making that decision to not put up with that feeling and to, you know, when people are making me uncomfortable, to draw that line and to just, you know what, you don't even have to explain it. And there were many, many times where I lost a lot of people this year. I lost a lot of friendships, specifically this year, male and female, but I will say male dominated because when I got my divorce, all my male friends got weird.
Yes.
You know, there was a whole bunch of them that got real odd.
Yeah.
And so I don't have them anymore because they made me uncomfortable.
It becomes
And
shoot
it
your shot 2021.
Well, and it felt like a betrayal almost. It was
It's
like, oh, so
is this what you've been waiting
why
for?
we were friends.
Yeah, is this what you've been waiting for?
Was what it felt like.
I have since cut off friendships that feel like that, and I can usually feel if like is that what you're just waiting for? Are you just waiting for my boyfriend to break up with me? Like what? Like,
and it was like people that I thought of as like very close friendships. You know, so I ended up losing a lot of really important people this year.
yeah.
And because of that, I was forced to be alone and to lose the codependency that I had because I was forced to be alone in my apartment
Right.
with myself.
Right.
And so I had, for the first time in my life since I was 15 years old, I had like an extended period of time that I was single,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so
And you were
I
alone.
was alone, and I had to lose that dependency on other people that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so, oh my God, it was so weird. It was weird and it was painful, and there was a lot of thinking. And then there was singing at midnight as loud as I could. And it was, oh my God, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was so helpful.
Yeah.
And it really
Like,
helped me to discover. So I think by the time I got moved into here with you, you know, by the time you and I moved into this apartment, I think that I had done enough of the groundwork that by the time I met my boyfriend now,
mm-hmm.
and he's such an amazing person, and he's so patient with me.
Yeah.
And
I want to talk about that too.
Exactly.
I think that's another cool development that both you and I have grown in is not only are we a lot more cognizant, more aware, more open, more honest about our attachment styles, your growth in particular, fucking phenomenal. We have also we're now with secure attachment styles.
Yes.
We're now with secure people.
Yeah.
Like, growth.
Because
growth.
people with secure attachment styles tend to attract people with secure attachment styles. But I think, you know, and I don't think that listen, I still have moments now. But I think that when I started dating him, I gotten to the point that I'm at now, but I think that I had done enough of the groundwork and gotten to a healthy enough place, right? Gotten to a healthy enough place that by the time I met him, and, you know, he's as wonderful as he is, and he's so helpful.
He helped
that
you paved the way, and he like laid the tile work essentially. Like exactly. He was just with each step, it was just like, here's another stone of trust that you keep adding. Yeah. Like, and that's exactly how I feel like it could be metaphorically represented. It's just like you cleared it all. You cleared the rubble and everything, and he's just laying the groundwork for you.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a very cool feeling.
It is a really cool feeling.
It's very different.
So different being in a healthy relationship, isn't it? Like,
you know, so that's my advice. Cut out your toxic people. Realize you have to really connect with yourself, really spend some time alone with your thoughts, and recognize what your triggers are, recognize the patterns in your life. Really, if you need to write down like the events that are happening in your life so that you can like physically look at the patterns in your life, like if you are having trouble keeping long-term relationships, or you feel like you're always so insecure in relationships, or you feel like you get scared and you run away and you can't figure out why, like you really have to look at your patterns and your triggers, and you have to heal that part. You have to heal the core issue.
Yeah.
Or it's never going to be able to evolve into something healthier.
Exactly.
You have to recognize what that core issue is and really give yourself compassion and let it heal.
Exactly.
And fix the problem. Change the behavior. You know, change your thought process. It's so, guys, I mean it. It's so much work, but I feel so much better.
Yeah. No, and you are, and like, there's been so much progress in you in many different ways and many different levels, and everything you just listed is exactly what you should do to heal those wounds that you have that stem from your early childhood. Releasing a lot of that anger, and just like
first of all, accepting that anger is a thing that you are allowed to feel.
You are 100% validated in your
angry. It is not inherently bad. It is a human emotion.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, and it depends on, obviously it's situational dependent 100%, but getting it out and having a civil conversation about how you actually felt. Like, I know you've had the ability to do so with the parent that obviously injured you and harbored the most wounds for you as a child.
That is a good point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, you're right. I did a few years back have a very in-depth conversation with the parent of mine that I have the most issues with.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I mean, the conversation didn't turn out exactly the way that I had wanted it to go.
But you got it all out.
Right. I got out what I needed to get out. And at the end of it, I
You think it was
had
her.
accepted the circumstances.
And that's the key. It's like, it's letting go of that anger and just accepting it for what it is.
Yeah,
Like,
listen, I mean, there's always exceptions where people are just shitty. Okay, but for the
that's
most
why I preface
part,
it with situation dependent, but if you are able to have those conversations and get that out, I think that was a huge...
for the most part, your parents probably don't even realize how they fucked you up.
Oh yeah, they think they did
most
great.
situations,
They think they did great.
as long as it's not like an outright abuse situation,
Right.
your parents probably don't know what it is that they did to traumatize you, because it was just Tuesday to them. They were adults. It was a much smaller issue to them than it was to you, because you were a much smaller person. So it was a much bigger problem. And so it was, traumatizing to you, but they probably didn't even realize that it happened. So I had that conversation with my parent, and I think it really helped me to realize that she didn't really know what she was doing at the time. And while that doesn't excuse anybody's behavior, that doesn't mean that they're not responsible for their actions, because they absolutely are. But what it does mean is that it's possible that they don't know that they hurt you, and you can't expect somebody to be able to fix that relationship or change their behavior if they don't know that it's wrong, because you have to remember that this is how your parents were raised. That's where they got their attachment style and how they passed it to you. That's how that works, is they are only parenting you the way that they know how, and they learned how to be parents from their parents. So sometimes, if they're not emotionally mature enough to get to that place on their own, you have to kind of point out. And so that's what I did. And that was really helpful in healing a lot of things as well, and in healing my relationship with her. So yeah.
I think that was really cool. You pointed out earlier how you fixed your mindset. Like you actively changed your thought process, and that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. It's not being another way to like kind of heal these attachment styles, in particular that anxious attachment style, is not being hyper fixated on those negative and intrusive thoughts, but in fact changing the narrative in your head and realizing that's not me, I'm not my thoughts, but instead having more compassion for yourself and what you've been through.
Yeah, and I will be honest, that is not something that came very easily to me personally.
Yeah, I remember.
As I don't think it does come easily to most people who are like that. Because it does come with a very low self-esteem, that attachment style typically.
Very much so.
And so I would say that what helped me the most in that was surrounding myself exclusively with people who loved me and who pointed out the good in me.
Yeah.
Because it was difficult for me to see on my own. So I would say that's probably how I built that up.
Had others building up your self-esteem for you that would regularly encourage you.
Really be conscious about who you surround yourself with, guys.
Because you are who you surround yourself with.
It's like growing flowers in rocks. Okay, you're not gonna get flowers quite as well as you are if you put them in soil. Okay, put your flowers in pots with good soil, please.
Yeah. I feel that. Self-esteem is like a huge thing with attachment styles in particular, because if you are not developing it as a child, if you're not developing that confidence within yourself, because it's not being fostered from your maternal or paternal figures, how are you supposed to expect yourself to be awesome and think you're awesome when your entire life you weren't really being encouraged in that way? So that being said, self-esteem is, and in particular, you mentioned it too, knowing that within these relationships, you are enough. You're not too much, you're not too little. The person that is the right person for you will never think anything of that of you. And that regardless of whether it ends, you will be okay.
Well, yeah. And that's kind of how I went into dating initially, is I actually had a lot of friends when I decided to start dating tell me, well, you're going to have a really hard time finding a guy who will accept blah, 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 right? My response to my friend who was telling me this all the time was always, well, then that's clearly not the person that I should be dating then, right?
Bingo.
If they can't give me what I need.
Because the right person will not have an issue with it whatsoever.
Right. Exactly.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
The right person will never think that you are too much and that you need to be stifled or too little. You are going to be just enough.
Yeah.
And you are okay.
Yes.
Beyond okay.
Listen, in a healthy relationship, you need to be able to have a life together, have a life separately. You need to be able to trust each other, have open communication. Like, these are things that you have to actively work at. You have to be able to communicate with your partner, number one.
Great segue, because that is the next thing on how to heal and become more secure in your attachment style is openly communicating to your partner what you feel in that moment and not letting it fester, and also setting healthy boundaries.
Well, that's something I'm working on, though, because
communicating in the moment.
Sometimes it's necessary for me to put
pause.
Things on the back burner.
Yeah, to pause and reflect for a little bit, and I understand.
Yeah.
But if it's something that is like a feeling that you need to communicate, and like, this is something that's not okay, this is something that has crossed a boundary, that's something that you need to openly communicate and be honest about. And certain situations in previous relationships that cause you trauma, that trigger you, that may not be what their intent was, or you're watching a movie or something and a scene will trigger something like that. In that moment, it's just communicating how you feel, how this is not okay, why it's not okay to you, what in relation to made it not okay, and like how to move forward. Like, it's all problem solving mentalities, but it's really just being open.
Right. Well, nobody's a mind reader. You know, you can't expect anybody to read your mind.
That's
if you don't tell them, they don't know.
That is the last step, is lowering your expectations on other people.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Are you serious?
That is the last one. Lowering your expectations.
That's hilarious. These are her notes. I didn't read
100.
These.
She did not read my notes. Lowering your expectations.
So clearly I'm doing it right.
You are doing it. You clearly did it right, because you are now secure.
Well, yes, I am now a secure attachment style. I could be more secure, so we're still working. Well, it's a work in progress.
We're all works in progress.
So here we are.
I could be more secure also.
Yes.
I mean,
so clearly,
but that is literally it. Lower your expectations, because they are not going to read your mind and they are not going to understand your emotions unless you clearly communicate them.
Yes.
Don't expect them to understand how you're feeling, and don't expect them to do things without you saying.
Absolutely. Unless you clearly communicate them, but I'd also like to have a sidebar. If you are somebody who has experienced a lot and you happen to be dating somebody who's not experienced a lot, if you are in one of those situations, there are times where they may never understand what you are feeling, and a lot of times I notice people in these situations becoming resentful of their partner because they don't understand, but that's not fair. They haven't gone through anything. If they haven't gone through anything like that, you can't expect them to fully empathize with you, because not everybody has the ability to empathize with somebody on that level.
Exactly.
With something that they have no experience in.
No, but it comes down
just
to
also give some grace to your
Yeah.
partner, the same way that they are giving grace to you and patience to you as you work through your problems. Also recognize that they may not be able to make that connection for themselves. There may be things that you need to go to therapy for.
Yeah.
Because your partner is not your therapist.
And therapy is great.
And your partner is not your therapist.
Bingo. Bingo. They are not your emotional punching bag. They are not your therapist. They're not your mom or your dad.
Nope.
They are your partner.
And they're not your child. And I think that's the end of Messy Minds today. I think that covers everything, right?
That, to a T, like, to To a T. Absolutely to a T. We did it.
Cheers. We'll see you guys next time.
Have a good night, guys.